Hey, what's going on, everybody? You're listening to SANE Show about nothing and everything. I'm your host, Cliff, and today I have another special guest joining us. He's also a fellow alum, Spartan Pride. Uh,
Yes,
he
sir.
is a voiceover artist. He has done work with the National Museum of African American History, History Channel, the Boston Celtics, the City of Los Angeles, and the YMCA, and along has a whole list of other clients he has worked with. He is also the founder and owner of Andre White Voice Acting LLC. Andre White Jr. How you doing, Andre?
I'm doing good, man. I'm blessed. Really, really thankful to be on a podcast. This is my first podcast interview ever in terms of being like the interviewee. So I'm good, man. Appreciate the opportunity to be on your show, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to take and come on Sane Show today. Really appreciate it. Really
No
excited to have
problem.
you on. And I've been watching you, do your work and everything. So I'm excited to finally have a chance to sit down and have a conversation with you on Sane Show today.
I appreciate it, man. Let's get to it.
Awesome. So, really quick, before I introduce the topics, I want to take a moment to shout out all the listeners in all 60 plus countries. Thank you guys. I love you guys. Thank you for continuing to like, share, subscribe, and spread the word about Sane Show. And if you're listening and you don't already follow us, be sure to check us out on Instagram and Twitter at sane_show. Again, that's sane, SANE _show on Instagram and Twitter. You can find us on Facebook at Sane Show. Again, on Facebook, that's Sane Show. So today we're going to have a conversation about voice acting. And then following that conversation, we're going to have a discussion about representation and entertainment. And then following those two discussions, we're going to have an interview with you, Dre, so that the listeners can learn more about you, the things you do, and all the fun and exciting things that go along with that. Cool?
Awesome.
So let's go ahead and kick it off with our first topic, voice acting. Voice acting is a unique field, one that doesn't get enough credit, in my opinion.
Very much so.
We all know what voice acting is, whether we know what it's called or not, because we've heard it, right? We've heard
Hmm.
the people on the movie trailers or the television show trailers, and at the sport arenas,
Yeah.
in the stores, on the
Yeah.
phones, like it's all around us every day.
Definitely. Everywhere.
Yes, and it's truly an art to me. Again, having come from a background where I've done choral singing, it's been a part of choirs and having to work on my voice. It's very much the same thing
Hmm.
with voice acting. You have to develop your voice. And even speaking as a podcaster, something I've had to work on as well, right? My
Yeah.
voice, tonality, pronunciation, diction, like all of that stuff. And I wanted to give you the floor so that you can, give us some perspective that me as a podcaster, I've even entertained the idea of going into
Yeah.
voice acting.
You got the voice, man. You got the voice, dog.
Thank you. But I want to give you the spotlight so that you can give me and the listeners some insight into voice acting as from your perspective as a voice artist.
So what I will say is that the one thing that I learned the quickest when it came to voice acting was, well, two things. The first thing is that voice acting is not a monolith. So when people look at voice acting and voiceover, same thing, voice acting, voiceover, they think automatically to, in a world. And you're thinking about the movie trailers and the theaters and the sports announcers and the cool TV commercials, right?
Hmm.
But the thing that fascinated me was that there's no box within the industry of voice acting. There's the first couple jobs that I ever did. I did narration for this author who was, trying to pitch his books to publishers. I did a documentary for the National Department of Death Penalty Litigation. So they're an organization that they fight for marginalized people to get off death row. Should they be in
Hmm.
jail? Possibly. Should they be on death row? No. So I was just fascinated that, hey, there's narration, there's everything from movie trailers all the way down to if you call your dermatologist right now and you're on the phone, that little voice comes up and it's, thank you for calling Piedmont Plastics and Dermatology. Press 1 for, and what people don't realize is that's a real person. That's a real person
Right.
probably in their home studio. And it doesn't sound like that. You know what I'm saying? So it's a real person in their home studio, somewhere in a studio. And so that was the part that fascinated me because you don't have to, you can do so many things. I know people that have made a living doing phone voice recordings. I know people that have, that are on like the outward space of, oh, they're in the movie trailers. And I know people that have jumped to, narration, movie trailer, audiobooks, all that stuff. I'll say there's over probably 20 different genres that people just don't know about. And then the second thing I've learned and that I love to tell people is that if you have the voice, that's cool, but you can't that's not all it takes. A lot of people look at like our industry and like, oh, I can do that. That's all you're doing is talking. All you're doing is reading. That's easy.
Right.
And then like I've had people literally, so I have a studio that I ended up building in my apartment. Shout out to Corona, because they made everybody
Right.
get at home. So I've had, some of my fraternity brothers, some of my homeboys, a couple people that I know that, just friends of friends, they'll be at my house, or I invite people over to come read with me, and they'll come to the booth. I'll give you a little script and they'll be awful. And they'll be like, it'll be the same people that'll be,
Yeah.
hey, I can do this is easy. And then they'll get in and they'll first of all, they'll get nervous in front of the mic. They'll just think that it's something that is not. And so I cherish those moments slightly because I'm like, okay, cool. Put some respect on the game. You know what I'm saying? You can't just stick, because you can't just stand in front of the mic and think you can do what you got to do. And there are probably like 2% of the voice actors out there that could do that. But we're talking the James Earl Joneses of the world, the Don LaFontaines, of the world.
Yeah.
So those are just the two things that I think people know what voice acting is, but I think people just know what it is on the surface. And that kind of just rounds back to what you were talking about, how, we don't really get the due respect that I think we deserve, because at the end of the day, if I'm voicing a Disney commercial for Moana or Frozen, what are you going to do? People are going to be, taken aback and just so fascinated with the visuals, but that voiceover, that's the sprinkles. We bring it home. You know what I'm saying? We the bow on top of the present. That's just my spiel on, the industry just as a whole. That's just kind of how I see it. And I think those are two of the biggest lessons that if you're interested in the industry, that those are two things I think you should know before going in.
So let me ask you this question here, because I think about it like with podcasting,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many different things you could talk about, and even like companies are now starting to do their own podcast for internal purposes.
Yeah.
And even with podcasting outside of that, like just having your own podcast, like there's avenues in which that can take you up. What are those avenues for being a voiceover artist?
In terms of
the avenues in which it can take you, like with that, maybe like being an actor, right, on screen, or
yeah,
or opening up a path down a different career.
the avenues that I've really seen it take, just from my personal experience, I definitely have seen people, break into the acting, and I've seen people take the skill of voice acting like 100% and monetize it into like the training and the audio recording space. So I know a really well-renowned voice actor out in LA named Brent Hagel. And what he did was he took he's a beast. He's like the LeBron James of voice acting to me. And he took his skill of voice acting, put about 5, 10, 15 years in the game, and then he was able to open his own podcasting / voice acting studio / agency. Like he did all three in one. So I see a lot of voice actors, once you really get that skill and you get the jobs and the years and the experience under your belt, I think it's easier to break into the acting space. I've seen people break into the podcasting space, and then people like Brent, he broke into the agency space. So opened his own agency and training studio. It's called Trailer Voice Artist, where he basically takes like the best movie trailer voice artists he can find, puts them under his wing, and then the talent, he's so like, he's got so many contacts in the game that like he's got Netflix on speed dial. He's got ABC I think he just signed like a super long deal with the Discovery Channel. Like he's got the Discovery Channel on his speed dial. So once you're into like the industry and you're doing those jobs and you're agent or you've got that rapport with those companies and those casting services and those social media directors, you got that cachet. You can spin that into an acting job. You can spin that into people talking about or you like he did, putting people under your wing and then putting people on that way. So it's a lot of ways to monetize, and he did it also with the podcasting space as well. Like you can do a podcast for anything,
Right. Right. That's true. That's very true. Appreciate that insight.
No doubt, man.
All right, we're back. Now we're going to have a conversation about representation in entertainment. So I know this was something that you and I spoke about in our first conversation we had before we put this together, as far as, you wanting to open the door for other people in the business, specifically Black people in the voiceover artistry business. And, this is a big topic for both of us. Representation is clearly important for me as well. And I'm happy to say on behalf of SANE Show, because now it's the team and SANE Media, that everybody's been represented. Minorities. Something I mention all the time is that I threw a fit about having more women on the show, because we didn't have enough. People in the LGBTQ community have been represented as well, and even having representation, asking those tough questions, having those uncomfortable conversations. And I'm just happy that people in the industry who are a part of some of these major organizations have said without hesitation that they can do better.
Yeah, definitely.
And that means a lot. And because that shows me that while we may not see what we want to see yet, there is some kind of inner working to try to bring about the change that we want to see. So just wanted to have a conversation with you and get your thoughts on the whole topic of representation within the entertainment business.
Speaking specifically to with voice acting, the one thing that I've seen, I'd say there's representation and there's not at the same time. Like if you've like a typical like audition, for instance, that you'll get with voice acting, typically I won't be funneled auditions unless they're looking for a Black teenage sounding, mid 20 to 30 sounding. That's the type of auditions that I'll be funneled. And I know that there was some I know a lot of people from my perspective have gotten flack for saying, hey, we want an urban sounding voice. And then people are like, okay, what does urban sound like?
Right.
Like, what does that mean? Like, what is an urban? Because I remember, like, I forgot who I did it for, but I did a job, and I remember we were going back and forth. I sent them like 4 different iterations of what they wanted. And we just kept going back and forth because they were going for, they wanted, man, we just want you to sound more urban, more inner city, more. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, do you want like a Black guy? You want me to sound like a drug dealer? What does that mean? Like, and you'll get them like dancing around those type of archetypes and stereotypes that they want. But that's the reason I say like it is representation, but it's not, because you will see, I've seen a lot of different auditions and a lot of jobs where they're looking specifically for Black voices and indigenous voices and women voices and whatnot. But what I would like to see, and one thing that I would like to be part of the change, is going further, more established voice artists having their own. Like, I want to see like more Black-owned voiceover studios, more Black-owned voiceover talent agencies, because right now, with the biggest talent agencies in the United States, you got Atlas Talent up in New York. You got, it's like Dean Panero talent. You got CESD talent. And those are like the big 3 off the top of my head. These are all white-owned spaces with super large rosters. So the one thing that I would love to do that I've seen, like I was talking about the guy Brent in Cali, is I would love to see more Black-owned spaces for voice acting. And furthermore, more avenues for Black people to break into the space, because the 2 of the voiceover artists that I look up to the most guy named Gabe Kunda and a guy named Enrique Josephs. I look to them because they're black guys, late 20s, early 30s, doing what I want to do. You know, they're right now Gabe's voicing for Disney Plus, Enrique's doing NFL films, big time Hollywood, right? But when you listen to a lot of times when I talk to black voiceover artists who have made it, a lot of times their stories to me sound like I got lucky. I was in the right place in the right time. I didn't know what this was until, somebody like these guys they got voices of God. They got voices of gold, right? So people are going to tap them on the shoulder, be like, hey, what do you think about this? But what I want to see is black people already be afforded the know-how and the knowledge to break into this industry if they want to. Because what you see a lot of the times is with COVID happened, and if you are a successful voiceover artist 5-10 years ago, you should have already had a home studio, but you could kind of get away with not having one, just like a musical artist, like a rap artist. You want to go cut a demo or an EP or an album, you might find a studio in your city. But sometimes voice artists who didn't have the studios, they could do that. But with COVID, now a lot of these big cats, these big jobs, they're saying, hey, if you want to voice this commercial campaign, if you want to do this, do that, you got to have a home studio. And a lot of times when I talk to black people that are trying to get into the industry, it's already like that barrier that's been set up already, because it takes money and investment to really knock some doors down in this industry for real. Like, I mean, you could get away with recording in your closet, and you can get away with buying foam and stuff off eBay and Amazon. But if you really want to be the real deal, for real, you gotta get that desktop or that MacBook or that high-end Dell or HP. You gotta get that tailored recording space. You need one of those industry microphones that's gonna start you at about $300-400. And you'll have people tell you that, hey, you might not have to do that, but from what I see, if you really trying to make some noise in the industry for real, and really have the right people knocking on your door, then those are the type of things that you have to have. And people just don't. I just see too many black people that I see in the industry that are where they are because they might not have known about it and someone had to tell them about it. But I want black people to already know about it. You know what I'm saying? Like theater kids and whatnot in middle school and high school say, hey, voice acting could be an avenue for me as well. I just feel like I don't see a lot of the major folks in the industry that owning stuff in the industry that are black. So that's just something that I want to be part of the change in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, you bring up a great point when you talk about knowing, because it's like I think about with podcasting. Like I didn't know that what I was really getting into, and
exactly.
But now almost 3 years in, and when I have people come to me all the time about podcasting, and I give them a wealth of information. There's so much. Like, you can start as a podcaster, and maybe you might end up doing this or doing that or doing this. Like you don't know, especially if it's a topic like finance or something. You don't know where that'll take you.
Yeah, exactly, man.
So you're so right, especially on and that's super important to me, especially having gone to an arts program like Northwest School of the Arts, shout out to them, because like having courses to be able to teach students about these kinds of things, and to broaden their horizon to the opportunities and not just look at it as maybe I just have to do movies or trailers, because this is, like you said, it's beyond that.
Yeah, exactly.
So much you can do. So you really touched on some great points there. All right, now for the interview. So, Dre, we're going to go ahead and ask you some questions so that the listeners and I can learn more about you, the things you do, and all the fun and exciting things that go along with that. So I'm going to go ahead and fire off with my first question. As one of my former guests says, you had to, and I quote, figure it out. How has not having much when you started helped you develop?
I think not having much help was a blessing in some sorts. And just give, people who are listening a background about what I mean by me not having much help is when I got started, as a voice actor, I did my first ever job back in 2017 and then another one in 2018. But not having much help. I found that when I was reaching out to people in the industry, how to get started, how to do this, do that, what should I buy? I found that I was getting left on red a lot, in the DMs and whatnot. So I found that not having much help, it made me more committed. It made me hungrier in a sense. It was very frustrating. I went through a lot of trial and error. I went through a lot of frustrations, a few tears here and there, because I don't have any background in audio engineering. And you don't necessarily need that to be a voice actor, but you do need to know the ins and outs of audio software, whatever you subscribe to, whether it's Logic Pro, Adobe Audition, Pro Tools, Audacity, all that good stuff. But not having much help, it really fueled me. I'm the type of guy where I'm really ambitious and I love to prove people wrong. And I think it's all about having faith in yourself, and it doesn't matter who's there to help you. If you want it, you gonna find a way to try and go get it. You know what I'm saying? So, and also it helped me develop because I was super passionate about not letting that same experience happen to the person before me. I mean, the person after me. So now whenever it comes to, I was cool being the guinea pig because, people, the people that I know, people in my community, I don't know any other voice actors personally that I kick it with, other than a guy, one of my frat brothers that I just met out in Cali, William Brown, cool dude, just met him. But we just met like 4 months ago, so he don't count. But in terms of my inner circle, people that I know, people that I went to school with, I don't know anybody that's in the industry. So me not having much help, I was cool being the guinea pig. And I said, okay, boom, I want to do this because I know there are other people that are at UNCG, in Huntersville, in Charlotte, in Greensboro, that look like me, that would, love to be in this industry. So let me make sure that I get these tools and whatnot so that I can give back once I make it, and once I'm in a space where I can look back and say, okay, boom, you got the repertoire. See, I think it just came down to just me being ambitious and wanting to prove people wrong. Like, okay, you're not gonna give it to me. Boom, let me take it. I'm gonna just go around you. So that's just the mindset I was in.
Word. Thank you for that. You mentioned wanting to open doors for other Black voiceover artists.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of touched on that in the previous segment. What are some ways that can be done?
I definitely want to. A goal of mine is I want to eventually open my own voiceover studio because I want there to be an equitable space for Black voice artists or people, or Black boys, girls, adolescents, grown-ups, whoever, that feel that they're interested in the field for someone that they can come get training, get in front of a mic, get in front of some copy, get in front of some reads, and see what, see where their interest is at, see where their voice is at, see what type of training and whatnot they need. I feel like if there was something in our community or in the communities that I'm from, that would be something that would open a lot of doors. I know I was talking to my girlfriend about, potentially not only opening my own voiceover studio, but also like I wanted to, I was thinking about starting my own cartoon, and, hiring Black artists and Black writers and Black voice actors to be represented in stuff like that. It's me just looking at what the non-melanated folks in the industry are doing and doing well. And I just want to do something like that for, the Black community. I know I keep going back to the Brent guy in LA, but I think what he's doing is so dope. Built his own voiceover building with a studio inside from ground up and has a roster of like 30 to 40 folks who he's getting on with. I'm talking big time clients, Netflix. They're booking somebody for Netflix every week, literally. And so I'm like, yo, that would be dope to have in Charlotte off Beatty's Ford or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, that would be super dope to have like in the city, a place for Black, Black artists and creatives to come and use their voice. And if they come and they're not there yet, let's get you there. Cause like I said, it's 20, 25 different genres of voice acting. everybody can't be James Earl Jones. Everybody can't be the voice behind the latest Transformers movie or the latest Avengers movie, but we can get you, let's get you, let's make an audiobook. Let's get you a commercial. Let's get you a promo. Let's get you an animation gig or whatever. I just want there to be people that are like not afraid to say, hey, voice actor looks pretty cool. How can I do that? And I have not only an answer, but a place for them to go, for them to get that tangible feeling and not for it to just be a thought. So that's what's churning in my head right now.
Hey, I'm with it. I am totally with you on that one. I love it. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So you, as I've said before, you have a voiceover artist's voice.
Mm-hmm.
How did you improve your voiceover skills? And at what point did you realize you have some form of mastery?
I realized that I had like 2% mastery when I did that documentary for the Center for Death Penalty Litigation about like 3 years ago. I had done nothing really up until that point in terms of voice acting. And I knew that I had a little bit of mastery because when I got in front of the microphone, there were like 3 people in front of me recording me, like audio engineers. And they were like, wow, man, your voice is crazy and you're doing so well on the mic. So I was like, okay, interesting. So I knew that I had the voice. I knew that I had some potential, but improving my skills over the years, man, it's just about getting in front of the mic and practicing, and also getting training. So over the last 3 years, I've done training with some coaches out in LA, a vocal coach and a voiceover artist who's been in the game 20 years, Donovan Corneets, Black voiceover artist out of Atlanta, Georgia. He is the GOAT. And it was just about not being, I think it's really easy. People get tricked when their friends and their mothers and fathers tell them they have a good voice. Because they're like, well, my mama told me I got a good voice. Like, I could be a voice actor. And it's all about a lot of people don't understand that there's a lot of technicality that goes into it. There's a lot of artistry that goes into it in terms of what script you're doing, what type of script. So I spent a lot of hours in front of the microphone, a lot of late nights YouTubing. I do a lot of watching commercials on YouTube, and even when I'm just, me and my homies watching the game, when the commercials come on, a lot of people just turn away from the TV. I'm the type of guy, I'm listening to every commercial because I want to hear, okay, how did he do that? He's voicing with Ford and Mercedes Benz. So what did he do here and there? Like what part of his technical repertoire do I need to try to develop? So it was just a mixture of not being too prideful, staying in front of the microphone, staying ready, and just getting coached whenever and however I can. A lot of times getting voiceover coaching, it could be a little expensive and a little inexpensive at the same time. The Atlanta Voiceover Studio, they do like voiceover coaching sessions for like $20 a session, like every Monday. And then a lot of times, a lot of coaches will charge anywhere between 75 and like 300 an hour. So it's really just about finding the coach for you, and typically you'll only be in a session for an hour. So yeah, man, I always believe that you can always get better. And I knew starting early on that my good voice was never going to be enough. It'll never be enough to just have a good voice. You got to make sure that when you get in front of the mic, you're technically sound, you know what you're doing, and that you understand that what your peers and what your friends hear is completely different than what an industry professional is going to hear. Because if you think that Disney Plus and Netflix and Hulu and HBO Max are just putting folk in front of the microphone for their commercials because they just got a nice voice, you are sadly mistaken. Like
Right.
there's so much like industry board, like hard, bold, underlined, italicized industry stuff that just goes into it. So I think it starts with, okay, you got the good voice. Now let's add all that industry knowledge and that sound technicality. So that's what I've been working on and what I'm still working on and will always be working on.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. So my last question to you, you and I agree that this industry is ambiguous. Why do you think it is, and what has it taught you?
I think the industry itself is ambiguous. Probably the biggest reason would be the level of competition, really. I think that it is really the level of competition because if you really think about it, each voiceover artist is their own company, in my opinion. And what I mean by that is, excuse me, what I mean by that is when you get a job. So let's say you are doing a job for company A and you are continuing to do jobs for company A and you are a black or let's say you are a white male, you have like the 20 to 30 sound and you know you're working with that company. The thing is that your spot can be taken at any point, basically. When it comes to like voiceover rosters and talent agencies and whatnot, all those people on that roster are there for a specific reason. They're gonna have their black voiceover artists who can sound this away and that away, and this one can sound, these couple guys can sound urban, and these couple guys can do they have the promo feel, and these couple guys have the low registry, and they can do the documentary and whatnot. I think a lot of the ambiguity comes from it just being a super big competition. It's a super big industry based competition. And so when I look back on all of the left on reds and the no's and things of that nature that I got when I was first starting in the industry, I think that had a lot to do with, people don't want you to come into the game and take their spot or one up them or take their clients or whatnot. And it's a real cutthroat industry, just to be completely, just be completely honest. So I think that's where a
Oh
lot
yeah.
of the I think that's where a lot of the ambiguity comes from. But I also think the ambiguity, for just speaking from, the black perspective, I think it just comes from the arts and performing and whatnot. Those things that are just, it's not readily available and accessible to black boys and girls and whatnot. So I think, and I think just as a whole, people are always ready, and, governments and companies and whatnot and school districts, they're always going to cut the arts budget first. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Hmm.
so I think that it's ambiguous because people haven't given an opportunity for it to be a viable career in their heads. So I think that's a lot of the ambiguity comes from that. People might not take it seriously, and it's just taught me that, okay, that's really their loss. I think one man's trash is another man's treasure, not to be cliche. So I think definitely one man's loss, one man's trash, another man's treasure. And it's also taught me that it's not for everybody. I think that I kind of take, the ambiguity kind of as a gift. Like, okay, this is clearly a field that's not for everybody. Let me see what I can do with it. And, if I can do something with it, then I'm going to make sure that the ambiguity goes away, at least for the people that are directly, watching me and in my circle and whatnot. I definitely think that people should open their eyes a little bit to the industry of voice acting and voiceover artistry, because people know what it is, but they don't really know what it is. Like, everybody knows, like, hey, you do
Right.
commercials or you do this, but they don't really know, like, once you chop away at that foundation and you dig a little hole into the ground and then you really see what the industry about, it's honestly fascinating. Like, I love it. Like, and I really want people to really just be more open, and just more willing to learn more about it.
Well, there
So
it
yeah,
is.
man, there it
That
is.
was my highly anticipated question right there. So
Yeah,
that was definitely great. And thank you. I've enjoyed having you on the show, and I enjoyed the conversation. So thank
no
you
problem, man.
again for taking time out of your schedule to come on SANE Show today.
No problem, man. Thank you for having me. Most definitely.
Always, always. Definitely got to have you back on the show. And really
Sure.
quick, before I turn you loose, if you could let the listeners know, and the industry folks that will be listening know, where they can find you and check out your work and stuff.
If you want to find and check out any of my work, you can find me at one solid place. I'm at andrewhitevo.com. That's Andre, Andre, white like the color, vo.com. You'll see my demo reels, a lot of the work that I've done, customer testimonials, all that good stuff. And you can contact me there as well. And you can find me on any of my social medias, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, all that good stuff at Blackout, BLACKKOUT_, man. You can find me at all these places at the same name.
You guys heard them. We got a rewind button for a reason. Write it down. Go
Yes,
check them
sir.
out. I know some of y'all need voiceover artists, so
Yeah, definitely.
definitely contact him. So thank you again. Thank you, listeners, for continuing to tune in and continuing to like, share, subscribe, and spread the word about the SANE Show. So again, you guys are listening to SANE Show, the show about nothing and everything. And until next time, we're out.
Yes, sir.